Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're the show that really tries to cut through the noise and get straight to the core of critical research. Today, we're diving into one of the most urgent global conversations, climate change and, well, the huge shift towards renewable energy. Essential, really. You hear it everywhere, right? This idea of a future powered entirely by clean sources. But what does the science actually say about getting to 100% renewable energy systems? Is it feasible? Our mission for you today is pretty clear. We want to give you a kind of shortcut to understanding the pulse of this incredibly important research field. It's evolving so fast. We're going to unpack who's driving the work, where it's happening, the tools they're using, and maybe some surprising things this big analysis reveals about, our journey to a sustainable energy future. Get ready for some aha moments, because honestly, there are a few real head scratchers in the findings.
Definitely. And our source for this deep dive is, well, it's pretty unique and powerful. It's not just another research paper. It's actually a meta-analysis, basically, a study of studies. It maps out over 4 decades of scientific work looking into whether fully renewable energy systems are actually doable. The full title is Review on 100% Renewable Energy System Analyses, a Bibliometric Perspective by Kaluli and Breyer. It gives this amazing sort of bird's eye view of the whole field.
Wow, 4 decades. That's a lot of research to look at through one lens. So,
Yeah.
okay, let's start at the beginning then. Why? Why is 100% renewable energy attracting so much research attention globally? What's the real driver here?
Well, motivation is kind of undeniable, isn't it? And it's getting more pressing. Kalili and Breyer's review points straight at the big concerns: climate change, global warming, driven mostly by us, by human activities, and our reliance on fossil fuels. We've seen greenhouse gas emissions just climb and climb. Like between 2010 and 2019, they went from about 53 up to 58 gigatons of CO2 equivalent per year. That's huge.
In just under a decade. That's a staggering increase. It really puts the scale of the challenge in perspective, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And it's not just climate change. There's also the massive health impact from air pollution, especially, in developing countries from burning fossil fuels. Plus, you have the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. They frame this too, right? Emphasizing renewables and energy efficiency as core targets. So yeah, the stakes are incredibly high. And the research community is definitely responding to this global need.
Okay, the urgency couldn't be clearer, and the review shows this isn't exactly a brand new idea either. Where did this concept, 100% renewables as something to be seriously studied, actually start?
Yeah, it goes back quite a way. Analytically, you can trace it to 1975 with Sorensen's early work. Then, just a year later, in 1976, Amory Lovins, who's a really influential energy policy analyst, he coined the term soft energy path, as an alternative to the big centralized hard energy system. But interestingly, it took over a decade for the first proper global 100% RE analysis to be published. That was Sorensen again in 1996.
So it was a slow burn at first. Took a while to really gain scientific traction.
Exactly. But then Jacobson and DeLucci's work in 2009 and 2011, that was a real landmark. It's actually the most cited paper now in this whole 100% RE systems research area. And methodological breakthroughs help push things forward too. Like Shish, back in 2005, showed that a 100% RE supply could meet demand in Europe, even with hourly resolution. That was a big deal for modeling. And Sterner, in 2009, introduced the power-to-gas concept. That brought in things like seasonal storage, sector coupling, really made the scenarios more complex, more realistic.
Right, these key steps forward. So given this long history and all these developments, how did this study, the Kalili and Breyer review, actually manage to sort through 4 decades of information? That sounds like a massive task.
It really is. They used what's called a bibliometric analysis. Think of it like using data science techniques to map out a whole research field. It's kind of a science of science approach. They went through publication databases like Scopus, used data mining to track everything: publications, authors, who's collaborating with whom, what trends are emerging, across over 600 scientific articles published up until mid-2021. It's a very systematic way to get a handle on the whole ecosystem.
And it's not just a giant list, I assume. They must have categorized these articles somehow to make sense of it all.
Exactly right. They found 620 articles in total, and they sorted them into 3 main buckets, basically. Category 1 is the main focus, with 550 articles. These are studies looking at a specific place, could be a village, could be the whole world. Then Category 2 is for generic analyses, not tied to a specific location. And Category 3 is for other literature reviews. But yeah, the results they focus on are mostly from Category 1. That gives us a really structured, kind of granular look at the practical side of the research.
That structure seems vital. Okay, let's talk about the sheer amount of research. Is interest in 100% renewables really exploding, or is it more of a steady climb?
Oh, it's absolutely exploding.
Okay.
Khalili and Breyer found exponential growth just looking at those Category 1 articles. It went from only 8 papers published in 2010 to 80 in 2020. That's a compound annual growth rate, CAGR, of 26% just in the 2010s. And here's the really striking part. More than two-thirds, like over 66%, of all the articles they found were published in just the last 5 years before their cutoff in mid-2021.
Wow, two-thirds in 5 years.
Yeah.
That's an incredible surge. That clearly signals something major is happening in the field, right? And what about the researchers themselves? Is that community growing just as fast?
Even faster, actually. The number of authors grew from just 8 individuals back in 2004 to nearly 1,400 by 2021. That shows an even higher CPR, about 30% between 2010 and 2020. So yeah, it's a rapidly expanding community, drawing in loads more expertise. It feels like a really healthy, dynamic field.
Okay, so massive growth, huge citation numbers, the internal scientific impact is clear. But does that momentum translate outwards? What does the review say about how global authorities like, say, the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, are actually using this research?
Right. This is one of the most, well, maybe troubling findings in the review. Even though the field racked up over 35,952 citations by May 2022, and citations were growing at this incredible 38% CAGR between 2010 and 2021, showing massive scientific impact. The IPCC has been noticeably slow to pick up on it. There's a real lag.
A lag. That seems like a huge disconnect. The IPCC is the global authority basically setting the agenda for policy. If they're slow to integrate this, what are the real-world impacts of that? For policymakers, for all of us.
It's a critical point, yeah. Get this. By 2013, there were already 98 articles published on 100% RE. But the IPCC's big fifth assessment report, published that same year, didn't even mention 100% on RE systems. Not once. It took until 2017 with the 1.5 degrees C special report for them to acknowledge it. And even then, just as an opportunity. And even the latest sixth assessment report in 2022 only called 100% RE a technically feasible solution, not a major opportunity. Khalili and Breyer, the authors, they strongly suggest there might be a link between this lack of recognition and, well, limited policy support for really going all in on the energy transition. It's like the policy world is playing catch-up with the science.
That's quite profound. It suggests maybe some inertia or perhaps even bias within these big established bodies. Okay, let's shift focus a bit to the who and where. Where in the world is all this research actually happening?
Yeah, the review maps this out pretty clearly. Europe, the Americas, and Australia are definitely the dominant regions. European countries together account for, get this, 71% of all the citations for those Category 1 articles. If you break it down by country, the USA has 45 country-specific studies. But Europe leads by a lot, with 181 studies overall. Within Europe, Denmark is huge, with 39 studies, Germany has 35, and then Finland and Sweden have 13 each. Those are some key players.
So mostly developed nations leading the charge. Does the review point out any major gaps, any geographical blind spots?
Oh, absolutely. A really substantial research gap in the Global South and Eurasia. Africa, for example, only has 15 country-level studies. And remarkably, 6 of those are for La Réunion, which is technically French territory, even though it's geographically near Africa. China, despite its massive energy needs, only has 17 studies listed. India has just 5. Russia, the biggest country in the world, only 2. Even megacities are mostly overlooked, except for New York City and Aalborg, which is surprising given their energy footprint.
Yeah, that really highlights a critical need for more research, more localized expertise in those areas, doesn't it?
Definitely.
And where is this research getting published? Which journals are really at the forefront?
The journals Energy and Applied Energy really stand out. Energy published 91 articles. Applied Energy had 67. And they also got the most citations. Khalili and Breyer also looked at the H-index for journals that's a measure of impact, basically. Energy had an H-index of 44, showing it's pretty influential in this field.
Right. And what about the actual research teams? Are there clear leaders emerging from all this activity?
Yep, the review identifies 21 teams they call highly productive. Breyer and his colleagues at LUT University in Finland, they top the list for the number of articles, 74. But Lund, Mathisen, and their team at Aalborg University in Denmark, they have the highest total citations, over 10,000. So yeah, those are clearly the powerhouses right now.
Okay, this next point was, I have to say, a real eye-opener for me. It highlights something fascinating about how science maybe evolves. Khalili and Breyer's analysis found this surprising paradox about the institutions involved. So, if these teams are driving it, what about the bigger picture? the established institutions.
Right, this is where it gets really interesting. They call it an institutional bias.
Okay.
Basically, only about 10% of the world's top 20 research organizations in general energy system analysis are also major players in 100% RE systems analysis, which means, a whopping 90% of the established big names, the ones you'd think have the best resources, the funding, the talent, seem to be avoiding or under-contributing to this really fast-growing critical field.
90%. Wow. So if the established scientific giants aren't leading on 100% renewables, what does that actually mean for innovation? And who is stepping into that gap? What's behind this self-induced barrier you mentioned?
Yeah, that phrase, self-induced barriers in scientific renewal, it's pretty provocative, isn't it? The review suggests it might point to institutions having maybe a bias against higher renewable scenarios. Could be lots of reasons, maybe ingrained research habits, maybe they see it as riskier, maybe existing links to traditional energy systems. Hard to say for sure. But whatever the reason, it creates this opening, this space for, quote, newcomer research organizations to really take international leadership, like we see with LUT and Aalborg. And you can even see things changing now, like NREL in the US, they're ramping up their activity, often because policy changes create a new demand for that kind of research. It's definitely a dynamic and kind of surprising part of the landscape.
Absolutely. Makes you think about inertia, even in science, facing such clear urgency. Okay, so connecting this back, what are the actual tools, the models researchers are using to figure out these complex 100% RE scenarios? Must be incredibly detailed work.
It really is complex. The review found two tools stand out by far: Energy Plan and the LUT Energy System Transition Model, or LUT-ESTM. Together, they account for a quarter, 25% of all the articles, and they get 35% of all the citations in the field, so they're dominant.
That's significant. So what's the main difference between them? You mentioned one simulates, one
You've
optimizes.
got it. Energy Plan is mostly for simulating energy systems. Researchers use it often for local or national scales. It lets them compare different strategies, run what-if scenarios. LUT-ESTM, though, is a linear optimization model. Its goal is to find the most cost-optimal way to transition whole energy and industry systems. It's pretty sophisticated multi-node, multi-sector, hourly resolution, even for a global system.
Right.
So yeah, one's like a simulator for exploring options, the other's like a precision tool for finding the cheapest path. It's a powerful combo.
Makes sense. Does the review mention any big limitations with these dominant models?
Yes, it does. A key one is that most models currently lack good off-grid integration capabilities, which is really crucial for regions like, say, sub-Saharan Africa, where you don't always have a centralized grid. Also, they generally can't model CO2 direct removal CDR options, ways to actively pull carbon out of the air. Although it's worth noting, LUT-ESTM is starting to integrate some of that, like direct air carbon capture and storage, DACCS. So the tools are evolving, but there are still gaps.
Okay. We've covered who's doing the research, where, and with what tools. How collaborative is this field? Are people working in isolation, or are there strong networks?
They use social network analysis, SNA, to map the connections, and it shows a pretty strong web of cooperation, actually. Aalborg University, LUT University, and Germany's DLR, that's the German Aerospace Center, they have the most collaborative links. And the co-authorship maps show these really dense clusters around key researchers like Breyer and Lund. So yeah, it indicates a pretty collaborative environment, especially among those leading groups.
And beyond the people, what are the main themes, the core topics that keep coming up in all these hundreds of articles?
Well, the keyword analysis shows what you'd expect. Renewable energy, solar energy, energy policy, wind energy are central. The word cost also pops up a lot, which makes sense. Economic viability is obviously crucial. And they also use topic modeling. That's a way to find recurring themes in text. It revealed that power system is actually the most common topic, even more common than the broader term energy system.
Interesting. So a real focus on electricity generation specifically.
Yeah, suggests a strong focus there. And another distinct topic that emerged was islands. Appeared in about 12% of all articles, probably because islands have unique energy challenges and are often good test cases for self-sufficiency.
What an incredible tour through this research landscape. Today, we took a deep dive into the review on 100% renewable energy system analyses, a bibliometric perspective by Khalili and Breyer. This amazing meta-analysis really gave us that bird's-eye view of a scientific field that's not just growing, it's experiencing truly explosive exponential growth. And it's all driven by the undeniable urgency of climate change.
Yeah, we've seen the key players, haven't we, from the early pioneers like Sorensen and Lovins, right up to the really productive teams now at places like LUT and Aalborg. We looked at the main tools, Energy Plan and LUT ESTM, that are core to modeling these complex transitions. And we saw the geographical hotspots, mainly Europe, the Americas, Australia, but also, importantly, those glaring research gaps, particularly in the Global South and Eurasia, areas that really need more focus.
Definitely. And beyond just the numbers and maps, I think the most striking thing for me from this deep dive is realizing that the transition to 100% renewables isn't just a technical puzzle. It's also deeply social and institutional. Those self-induced barriers in established research hint at this, well, inertia maybe, but also create fertile ground for new players, new ideas to come through.
Exactly. And this review, it doesn't just map progress, it also points out limitations like the model gaps for off-grid systems or even a significant gender gap among the most published authors, which is another important dimension.
So let's leave you with this provocative thought. What does this apparent reluctance from some established institutions actually mean for the pace of innovation, especially when we're facing a climate emergency? And thinking about the opportunities for, as the paper calls it, academic renewal, identified in this review on 100% renewable energy system analyses, a bibliometric perspective. What surprising new fields, what unexpected solutions, maybe even what powerful new leaders might emerge from these currently overlooked areas, especially if more diverse voices, more researchers from those underrepresented regions really take the lead. The journey to a fully renewable world is definitely accelerating. But it seems it's a journey that still needs your curiosity, your critical thinking, to help shape its path forward.